What's up, beautiful people? It's your girl, Leanne. It's early morning. I've done my prayers. It's shedding into soul culture. I'm so excited all the time to have this moment with my beloved JaiSri Lambert. And we are in podcast number 21. Welcome to the show, JaiSri.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
And what we do in this podcast series, friends, as a reminder, as you keep watching us grow through these series and what's to come in the future, is we're going to humble ourselves into a moment in centering with the blessings of a prayer started by JaiSri to invoke the divine. And then to talk on our topics today, we'll be merging Ayurveda and yoga, the sisters of the divine here.
So this is a prayer to Sri Ganesh. He is the Ishta Devata of my beloved mentor, Dr. Vasant Lad. And so sharing that invocation with all of you. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatim Havamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamastravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanaspatanaha Shrunvanu Tivi Sirasadanam Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Siddhi Buddhi Shakti Sahita Shriman Mahaganadipataye Namo Namaha Nirvignam Kuru.
Om Shanti. What a blessing, audience. I'll tell you one thing. There are people that come into our lives for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. And I believe before JaiSri leaves this earth, she's going to be a lifetime for me. Just her personality and her love and her dedication to truth. So today we will highlight on some beautiful work that she offered me when I first met her, and a PDF that we can attach to this podcast, 21, and a very auspicious number too, in numerology of an enlightened timeline, where we're merging the sisters of Ayurveda and yoga. JaiSri is written on here some basic stuff for a yoga teacher like me, merging this, and I took this gift and we're going to expand on it today, where yoga asana is to be adapted to the individual's Prakruti and Vikruti. Vata needs gentle yoga, Pitta needs cooling practices, and kapha needs vigorous heating yoga. For kapha, hold the pose for longer, but for Vata, hold the pose gently. And I'll be making some videos on this just because that's my lineage, and my soul sister that we're talking to will give us a wonderful explanation on how this can benefit us.
Well, first of all, we have to understand the terms Prakruti and Vikruti, as well as do a little review of the three terms, Sanskrit words Vata, Pitta, Kapha. Those are the three primary vocabulary words of Ayurveda to understand our psychobiology. And how we come into this world is by the meeting of the mother and father with the sperm and the egg to unite in a formation and attraction to a new soul who has gravitated there by karma, who has a perfect match of the destiny with parents, time of birth, unfolding of the time between birth and death, and the traits and times in which we're born for our acculturalization. So not just the genetic factor, but also the time frame in which we are raised up and acculturalized. So the Prakriti is the word referring to the actual genetic factor, our constitution from the time of conception, taking the traits of the balances and imbalances of the mother at the time and the balances and imbalances of the father at the time. So those conditions at the time of union of mother and father, those imprint as our destiny, health karmas, lifespan karmas, the physical traits that we have, the place of birth. So these are the things that are imprinted from the time of conception. Even if the soul enters a little earlier, a little later, it really doesn't matter. It's that moment of conception that is the gelling of the RNA, DNA, and the timing of all things to come. So then Vikruti travels through time to the current situation, the current state of affairs with body, mind, and consciousness. What kind of opportunities have we had for enlightenment or for self-realization? What kind of exposures we've had environmentally? Children born during COVID, for example, they have particular karma, particular immune situation. Now, people that are born in China, people that are born in Malaysia, North America, there's always a different destiny with regards to how this unfolds. So Vikruti refers to the now. It refers to the current conditions as compared to the conditions at the time of conception. Now, there should be a match, ideally, between Prakruti and Vikruti of these three doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Vata being primarily expressing ether and air element factors of the five main constructing elements of the creation: ether, air, fire, water, and earth. So of these five, Vata dosha expresses more ether and air factor, space and air factor. So it has really a dominance of atomic energy and electrical energy. This is why the people are very creative, quick to change, communicative, and actually forgetful as well.
Mm.
Then Pitta dosha refers more to the fire and water element dominances. Of course, all five exist in all creation, but there are ratios. So the ratio changes with Pitta in that Pitta person is more hot, fiery. They love to spread their doctrine, as we're doing here today. And they also have a penetrating factor. They're excellent researchers. They're into righteousness because of sattva guna expressing more prominently in Pitta dosha. That is to say, these are the policemen of the world. They're the thought leaders. They're the reformists and the soldiers as well of the world. Then kapha also is a very important word to understand for Ayurveda, which is more earth and water element combination. So kapha people have more liquid quality, sticky quality, thick, heavy, adhering factors. So they do tend to overweight more. Each category has its disease proneness from the Prakruti into the Vikruti, because now environmental conditions, time, so many contextual factors now influence the person in the Vikruti to express more in relation to their Prakruti, more Vata, Pitta, or Kapha. So those are little introductory words to help us guide our dialogue today.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. So going into asana, I guess we can break down what balances us and why, Vata needs a gentle yoga versus Pitta needing cooling practices and Kapha as such, and maybe the timelines too. Why would it change in the timelines in the morning or like when we do the work or when we do meditate based on the doshas?
Very good. So these are sweeping generalizations we're just discussing today. Every individual will have their own story, their own circumstance, context, details. But in general, we'll think about how Vata dominant person, the thin person who's prone to cold, they are more delicate and they do have to have more gentle postures, breathing practices. They should not be doing vigorous things, marathons, otherwise they'll burn out and develop neurological diseases later on. So one of the causes of MS, for example, is overuse of exercise. They have exercised to far beyond their half capacity. Now, for Pitta person is hot, sharp, penetrating, spreading, liquid, sour. So they have disease proneness to heat conditions, rashes, infections, inflammatory factor, and they are therefore best to think about cooling practices. Shitali pranayama, fish pose, cow pose, boat pose, bow pose, those poses that emphasize the pelvic cavity where the small intestine, the main seat of Pitta dosha, is residing. That's where the Pitta diseases will arise from. When any of the qualities of Pitta increase, overflow from there, enter the general circulation, and deposit into a weak area. Now, kapha person who is inherently slow, more tamasic, more patient, more forgiving, compassionate, inclusive, they have a tendency to overweight diseases, diabetic syndrome. They have more tendency to congestive conditions, and that's why they need more vigorous of a yoga program. They need to be doing Vastrika pranayama. They need to be holding the poses for longer so they sweat. If they're seasoned in yoga asana, that part of the Patanjali Sutra referring to stretching postures, if they're uh, doing their asanas in the morning to get ready for meditation, they need a more vigorous wake up in order to get the sluggish factor moving so that they can keep a balanced posture for the main point of meditation.
Beautiful. And okay, so also when we combine, when we have like the doshas, when they're not just singular, but when they're duo and then they're mixed, I think the yoga would also shift for that individual.
Yes, it's definitely according to the Vikruti, the Prakruti and Vikruti together. We have to consider what are the transiting influences, maybe an imbalanced state. And yes, then we have to think about our constitutional tendency so that we're balancing both at the same time, because Vata generates more radiant energy, Kapha generates more mechanical energy. So the factor that they share in liquid quality, which is chemical energy, these are the arenas in which we have to think about which posture, where is its primary action, because kapha postures, for example, they want to be more for lungs, upper stomach, more thoracic cavity. So all the shoulder postures, all the gentle spinal twists, small inversions as well are best for kapha, whereas inversions are heating. Therefore, Pitta person is not advised to do inversions, headstand, shoulder stand, like that. So in some ways, people love to do what's going to imbalance them. Even they love to eat what's going to imbalance them. But once they learn Ayurveda, they will learn the principles of how to balance their own individual constitution and their families, because most people will be women that are interested in these topics, and therefore perhaps in charge of other people's menus, lifestyle, schedule, etc. One interesting thing about kapha is it loves to sleep longer because of heavy quality, and Vata person may have sleeplessness issues. So that is why the Vata person will have a much more gentle program as compared to a kapha person who does need to shake it up.
So yeah, so when we have the mixtures between like one or more doshas, or even the triple dosha that we talked about, when somebody has all three affecting them, are they going to be open to all the aspects of yoga, like where they need to consider, balancing all three aspects at once?
Sure. So we have sun salutes and moon salutes to balance the Tridosha. So the sun salute, of course, is warming. So we'll think twice if you're Pitta person having Pitta disease in hot summer, we'll think twice about that and consider the moon salutes, cooling. So all the moon salutes are postures are cooling, whereas the Surya Namaskar, those are all heating postures, especially if they're done a little bit aerobically, a little quickly to induce sweating, then those will be very heating. So that's excellent for Vata and kapha, but for Pitta, we need a moderate, middle of the road path so that they don't go into extremes, because they love extremes, and extremes are the downfall in due course.
I love it. Yeah, I was noticing myself. So I had one of my students that's doing their 200-hour program come to teach me because I'm helping them get through the final stages there. And we went into full yin. So I was watching my Pitta nature with the yin yoga, and like dropping into that silence deeper and deeper and deeper is like, it's where I found rest and where I found love and where I found myself nurtured. So, like the depth of how much we have with that Pitta. There's so much fire, like we got so much going on, but that balance that came with yin yoga. So yeah, I totally get it. And I can see how these can have effects. And I really feel that balance even myself as a teacher, because we come to learn in the West very more on the external aspect. I find yoga has been like so over neo yoga, neo awareness, but then when you go into the Eastern philosophies, it's like, reading the Shiva Samhita, reading Shiva Mahapurana, like really understanding why we do the Yoni Mudra or why we're doing the Mahaband, and the depth of like the merge of the inner world, and so yeah, I think audience, this is a huge thing for anybody watching too, is like, take your time with this knowledge. Take your time with, reaching out to knowledgeable people where you take yourself on a journey of self-exploration,
Yes,
right?
you see the Patanjali Sutra, the Yoga Sutra is and there are relatively few verses. I think there's fewer than 200 verses, but in this is contained all the Ashtanga, the 8 limbs, the yamas and niyamas, the pranayama, asana. This is where we've been discussing so far. But then it moves into dhyan, samadhi, and states beyond the equilibrated body, mind, and consciousness. After body, mind, and consciousness is balanced together and coordinated for the main purpose of human incarnation, the self-realization, the God realization, then all these come together as a journey into the third eye and beyond. So Patanjali Sutra is I think probably overdue for more consideration in yoga studios in the West, who have given emphasis to the asana part of it as if it's an exercise class, which no, it's part of a context of calming your body from whatever disturbance may have been going on, so that you can really focus on the main point, the unconditional love, the purification of the inner mind stuff, the training of the mind to be the servant and not the master. There's the inner purpose of yoga, union of the soul with the oversoul.
Yeah, I was actually reading a lot, working on the kids projects too, and recently working with ADHD. Now, with a hyperactive reality, with children with ADHD, and slowing down and seeing how wonderful documentation that I was studying, where the reality of children utilizing these gifts and how it originated through the aspect of Sanatana Dharma, soul culture, coming back into that wholeness, is ideally presenting them wholeness first, so that they can recognize when they are holding an asana what they're really discovering about themselves, versus the overactive aspect of these devices, which are putting their mind in several places and giving them so much access so fast, where they haven't developed enough time just being present and holding the asana. And that's what the holding the asana will do, is like it will bring them back to that balance of the overstimulation of what this generation has done with technology.
Yes, you've hit on a fantastic point, is the role of yoga science with regards to healing of all diseases, but especially these psychospiritual diseases, let's say the autism spectrum, let's say the attention deficit group of disturbances. Any mental disorder, physical disorder, will benefit from the discipline. Discipline means following, discipleship. It means developing a practice. So, no doubt, when an individual, any individual, we could say we're all attention deficit to some degree. We have forgotten God in our day-to-day world. And yes, especially with today's acculturalization with the cell phone industry, that's where the cell phone culture has dominated temporarily, mind you. This won't be forever. Everything that occurs in time has a beginning and an end. So this, we watched it develop slowly, and now it's having a sort of a prime time existence throughout the world. That's because the collective consciousness is allowing it, inviting it, nourishing it, supporting it, purchasing it, involving in it. Right? This is now part of uh, why these 8 limbs of Patanjali are so important today, because we can, through any still point mechanism, whether it's a yoga nidra, whether it's holding an asana posture, which is a dynamic situation because we're engaging muscles to relax, we're engaging the attention to quiet, and we're engaging the levels of consciousness to merge unconscious, subconscious, conscious, and superconscious. So that's the recipe for all of us, regardless of where we're starting. Children in distress, adults in distress, we're seeking ways and means out of our confusions, delusions, and the ancient practices, Ayurveda, yoga. These have always been given for finding solutions in whatever time we've incarnated. Means that these are timeless sciences. They have not changed since the very beginning. The principles are exactly the same. Only context has changed. We're not the 18th century anymore. We're now the 21st century. So we have to adopt these principles, timeless principles, in whatever day and age we find ourselves, in order that we enter into a universality of existence, experience, progress, transformation, realization, all this.
And I feel my greatest awareness is also being sensitive and receptive to this um, inner world, which these practices bring us to see what is really happening with consciousness. Because the more that we're using these 8 limbs and we go into samadhi, what is samadhi? Samadhi is the unfolding of the Trimurti within us. You know, what are the grantis? What are locked within our body when you start studying these ancient wisdoms of the locks and the bands of the pranayama? And I came across those wisdoms knowing and reflecting with when I look at the yoga and I look at the Ayurveda, and then I looked at the spiritual awakening, the higher steps that you're talking about, and exploring the body being that temple or that flute or that bamboo of air through the pranayama, of discovering the locks of the divine within. And what I found was really interesting, even they separated when we had the Trimurti, but look at the Trimurti of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. They're also just another Trimurti of energy within those aspects of creator, destruction, and maintainer. And then mother maintaining all of it at the same time. So I don't know if you have anything to say about that, but I could go on in another podcast about what I've discovered about these grantis, because it was such a breakthrough, but it's not a little topic, where there's locks actually that are governing this body that we need to overcome in our senses so that we can allow the Shushna cord to flow all the way through with Kundalini. But those locks are in the inner God within us.
Yes, well, you've just mentioned a very vast number of subtopics for sure. But let's take the number 3, the trident. She was trident, which is pictured behind you there so beautifully. So these 3 points are triangular in nature. So the pyramid form is representing that, multiples of 3. In various ways, as a building with a square foundation, so 4 walls as a square, but the peak is it comes to this 3: Father, Son, Holy Ghost, Vata, Pitta, kapha. Uh, there's just any number of them. If you count the number of 3 combinations and multiples of 3 that there are existing in the world, and it does seem to be endless. And in fact, if you put it into your computer, your adding machine, then you will definitely have an infinite number that comes. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 always goes into 9, the final number, uh, ad infinitum. So yes, it still belongs to the creation, however, and we are interested in the Purusha beyond the creation. That is to say, this creation is governed by time, and therefore it is finite. So whatever is existing in time is existing in a bubble or a constraint that will have a beginning and an end. So what we're looking for is the eternal, the changeless, the nameless, the formless. And that is what we can find with the Patanjali Sutra, is how to make the body still with pranayama, asana, then sitting for meditation practice, the main point, coming to the third eye, which will automatically magnetize into the beyond in due course. So this is the divine life that has existed throughout forever in whatever yuga or incarnation. This particular one will also have a dissolution and go through the 4 main cycles of golden age, silver age, copper age, and iron age, which is said to be current, leading into the next golden age. So that's why we're discussing about these topics, to revive these ancient uh, sources of true knowledge, which have never died, no matter which invader has tried to destroy these scriptures. There's never been a time in history when this knowledge is unavailable. So that in itself is a great comfort, that we always have access. We're humans. We're made of light. We're individuated light. We have a destiny to merge into the pure light, and we do come through a journey of either the three granthis, the 3 levels of consciousness, the 3 doshas, and eventually come to the peak, the doorway into the beyond, into the all in all.
So good. And it's so good to be with you all the time. Friends, we've talked about a lot here, but even when we go back, we can always take more, go deeper. It gets juicy and delicious all the time. I want to have everybody make sure you check out the PDF that we will link to this, a little bit more information that our dear Dr. JaiSri Lambert has put together herself, and stay on the journey with us. It's a beautiful journey. It's a beautiful friendship. It's a beautiful sisterhood, and it's a beautiful day to enjoy yourself. So I want to salute you, JaiSri, for your moments here today. You can end with a prayer, and we will come back next week if we do make that plan, but we'll just finish here now.
And thank you so much for this golden opportunity. So in remembrance of my teacher, who has donated most all this information to me today that we've shared, we'll close with the very traditional prayer. Sahana Vatu, Sahana Punaktu, Sahaviryam Karvavahe, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Om. Thank you, sister. And audience, please feel free to check out the PDF, or please feel free to DM JaiSri at any time, or myself, about ongoing courses that help you come back to your wholeness. Namaste.